Eldrich Deku by Mirage of a Dream Stuff. Read by My Lost and Found. 7 reasons Bakugo Katsuki is scared of Deku, and 1 reason he isn't. Summary. Bakugo has always known there was something off about Deku. When he was younger, he didn't understand why people said Deku didn't have a quirk. Quirkless people didn't have that many teeth. Quirkless people couldn't grow more eyes. Quirkless people didn't have retractable spider legs. And quirkless people certainly couldn't grow back limbs. Now that they go to UA together, he wonders just how he managed to hide it. Number 1. His teeth. One time, when they were kids, Deku had complained about something stuck in his teeth. After 20 minutes of complaining, he finally said that he would get it out for him if he just shut up. Deku opened his mouth, and there were rows and rows of teeth all the way down his throat. Sharp rows of teeth. He poked one of them and started bleeding. He grabbed the stuck piece of meat. He didn't want to know where it came from or what it was, and got his hand out of there. When his parents asked why he was bleeding, he lied and said he got into the knives. Number 2. How he knew everything. He knew about facets of Bakugo's quirk that he had never told him, and he certainly wasn't there when it happened. One time, his dad got really sick. He told Deku, and Deku said to take some tea and mix in these 3 seeds. He was desperate, so he did. His dad was up and walking the next day. In middle school, he told him to take a different route home from school. He ended up doing it, and learned a few hours later that if he went down his original route, he would have gotten attacked by the slime villain. He didn't question Deku after that. 3. His voice when he's mad. In middle school, these kids would pick on Deku for being quirkless, and Bakugo for being friends with him. One day, this extra with a restraining quirk got a hold of him. Deku showed up behind him. He didn't know what demonic language he was speaking or why his normally high-pitched voice sounded like he had been eating gravel and rocks. But he didn't question it. He knew better than that. The stupid extra transferred the next week, but not before telling everyone. They decided to test that theory. Needless to say, that was how Bakugo and Deku became the kings of Altera. 4. How he acted when some punk insulted his mother. That was when he found out about the spider legs. He had never seen so much blood in his life. He hoped he never saw that much blood ever again. He had nightmares for weeks. He'd scream whenever he saw a spider. He's still scared of blood. 5. Remind him to never go with Deku into the woods at night. He was always a little wary of the woods at night. It was worse when he went with Deku. The shadows screamed and animals attacked. His flashlight caught on fire and his coat burned. At least raw rabbit didn't taste that bad. And he was safe as long as he was near Deku. Nothing dared hurt him. Not even the thing with horns. Number 6. His dad. A few times he went with the Midoriyas to visit Deku's dad while his parents were out of town. Deku's dad lived really far into the woods in another town, and Bakugo swore the snakes weren't supposed to be there, or saying, It was even worse when Bakugo found out they were trekking through the suicide forest. But he made it there in one piece, and Auntie is really good at calming people down. Deku's dad lived in a huge cave. There were bats and skeletons and spider webs everywhere. At least by the 3rd visit, he wasn't scared of the cave anymore. But he knows he will be scared of Deku's dad till the end of his days. Number 7. His eyes. One time, on the way home from visiting Deku's dad, someone tried to mug them. That was when Deku started growing eyes all over his face, arms, legs, chest, back, you name it. The perp turned himself in. The police didn't believe his claims of Deku growing eyes all over his body, especially when Auntie told them he was quirkless. And number one, he's a good friend. During a villain fight, he was very close to being killed by Shigaraki. He wasn't scared. He knew Deku would show up. And Shigaraki learned the hard way that Deku was immune to his deadly touch. As his classmates and teachers stood by in horror as Deku beat Shigaraki to a pulp, Bakugo stood up. "Come on, nerd. Old hag's making katsudon for dinner. Auntie said you could stay overnight, and there's a whole bucket of raw meat. Now hurry up or we can't get home in time for the All Might reruns." "Okay, Kachan." As they walked away, chattering, their classmates wondered what else they didn't know about them. Aizawa picked up his phone. He needed to make a call to Miss Midoriya. Aizawa and Inko talk while the cryptid trio have tea at the Bakugous. Summary: Aizawa asks Miss Midoriya what the heck is up with her son, while he and his friends are squirreled safely away at the Bakugous. After the kids went home and the mess that was formerly Shigaraki Tomura was cleaned up, Aizawa headed off to the Midoriya household. He figured it would be a better conversation to have in person. He was greeted at the door by Inko, who didn't seem fazed by the knowledge that her son had killed a man. "Coffee?" Miss Midoriya said while making a few refreshments. He didn't refuse. After all, he taught all day and fought all night. As he took a sip, it occurred to him it might have been poisoned. After all, if she was his only parental role model and he was that creepy, his mother was probably worse. He decided it was worth it. As Miss Midoriya sat on the couch next to him, he spoke. "I'm here to talk about Izuku's behavior today. He killed the leader of the League of Villains. You do understand the consequences this will have, correct?" Miss Midoriya frowned. "Yes, I do. However, it's part of his nature. And besides, you are teaching him how to fight for the majority of his life to accomplish the same goal." "Miss Midoriya, I'm not sure you understand. He brutally murdered him in front of everybody. This is unacceptable behavior." Miss Midoriya looked at him sternly. "I know that very well, but you're the one who doesn't understand." "Miss Midoriya, what in the world are you talking about?" She set down her drink on the coffee table. "His father isn't human. He is other. Some call them the Fae. Others call them demons. I prefer the term Oni. It fits them best." "Them?" "Izuku's father. And of course, many others. The last he was seen in public, it sparked the witch hunts. Very unfortunate time. Izuku has many of the abilities of his father, one of which you saw today. He's incredibly smart. If he wished, he would already be the top hero alongside Katsuki. For years, they've been two peas in a pod." Aizawa blinked. This woman had to be delusional. There's no way that could be true. Miss Midoriya sighed. "It's obvious you don't understand. Izuku isn't human. Neither is the boy you and President Mike adopted." "Hitoshi?" "Yes. He and Izuku have been friends for a few years. They were both thrilled to find out they weren't the only one. It took some time for Shinsou to warm up to Katsuki, but now they're quite close." It did make sense. Deku and Bakugo never left each other's sides, and since Shinsou transferred into 1A, they always stuck together. But they had to be human. There just wasn't any way they weren't. Surely you noticed how he doesn't sleep at night, how there are purple markings on his arms and legs, his strange taste for meat, his sharp teeth, how there's always at least 2 cats in his hair. That's true, but if he really wasn't human, his living parent wouldn't have let us adopt him. His mother was very happy to let him be adopted, actually. She cares very much for him, and you two can protect him very well. As he is half human, he can't spend all his time around his mother and her friends. It's necessary for him to spend some time away from magic, especially while most of his more monstrous qualities develop. Otherwise, it would be unsafe for him. It would cause him to speed through some of his growth. And while his magic side is equipped for that, his human side isn't. He could easily end up seriously hurt and dying. No one wants that to happen. That did explain why Shinsou spoke as if his mother was still alive, and how the markings he claimed were tattoos moved, how his eyes seemed to glow when he was happy, and how he seemed to talk to cats. Say I believe you. Then what does Bakugo have to do with this? He and Izuku have been friends since they were very little. They spend all their time together, so Katsuki witnessed quite a few times where Izuku couldn't control his other side. It actually helped him get over his inferiority complex by keeping in mind that someone so powerful adored him. His parents didn't mind much, because Katsuki's cousin is also half human, half Oni. When Aizawa left half an hour later, he was thinking about how to tell Mike that their son is only half human, and how to break it to him that they needed to keep a bucket of raw meat in the house. Meanwhile, at the Bakugo household, as Bakugo handed more meat to Shinsou, his eyes glowed. Izuku, if you don't marry him, I will. Or I'll marry both of you. And as they laughed together, Masura was just glad his tablecloth was in one piece. Aizawa questions Bakugo. Let me get this straight, even though they're not. You're saying you went to talk to Midoriya's mother because he killed a man, and you came back saying our son was inhuman and we needed to keep a bucket of raw meat in the house. Mike was very confused. They went back and forth for some time. In that time, Shinsou came home and picked Eri up from daycare. As they walked through the door, they caught a snippet of conversation. Shota, I love you, but there is no possible way that our son isn't human. Look, he's here now. I'll ask him. Hey, Hitoshi, do you happen to be an Eldritch being? Eri looked at him. Toshi, what does that mean? He kneeled beside her. It means something that can do what humans can't. Are you special? He chuckled and ruffled her hair. Yes, I am. Do you want to see Mittens or Tricky? Can I see both? He reached into his hair. Of course, kiddo. As Eri began playing with the cats, Mike leaned over to Aizawa. How long have those cats been in his hair? Where did he get them? Honestly, I have no idea. The next day, Aizawa went to the Bakugo's house. He needed more than one source. Mike and Hitoshi were currently talking to Nezu, saying, Hey, maybe we should just tell them the leader of the Lord of Villains is dead, and not that Midoriya murdered him. He knocked on the door. As Mitsuki answered, he could see Deku clinging to Bakugo's back while he was reading what appeared to be How to Keep a Mortal Alive for as Long as You, for Dummies. Bakugo seemed unfazed by this, although it could have been that he didn't notice as he was reading the Divine Comedy. As he sat down opposite of his students, they looked up. So, Bakugo, how long have you known about Midoriya's peculiarities? Well, we met about 15 years ago, so pretty much my entire life. Okay. Can you tell me why you took Midoriya away from the crime scene? Bakugo looked uncomfortable for a second before taking a breath and answering. I really don't like blood, especially when it's everywhere. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. You wanted your hero name to be King Explosion Murder? Yeah, not King Explosion Blood. It was the first thing I thought of. I panicked. Besides, in the end, I chose dynamite. Aizawa shrugged. Fine. So, how did you find out about these strange things? Bakugo thought for a moment. I'm pretty sure the first time I saw anything out of the ordinary was when he first smiled at me and there were 6 rows of teeth visible. Unrelated question. How do they fit in his mouth? Don't know, don't want to know. Fair enough. Does your mother know Midoriya killed Shigaraki? Yeah, he told her, and she gave him a cookie and told him, good job. Aizawa paused a moment. He blinked. He blinked again. It took a few minutes for him to process it. Last question. When did you find out that Shinsou was an Eldritch being? Bakugo smiled. Aizawa didn't think he'd ever seen him do that before. Well, it turns out that all Eldritch creatures have a similar aura, so I knew when I met him, because he felt like Izu-chan. As Aizawa went home, he got a call from Mike. Nezu's office is now filled with cats. I am so sorry. Here's a quick blooper for the amount of times I had to re-record something this thick because I broke down laughing. And how to break it to him that they needed to keep a bucket of raw meat in the house. I can't with the bucket of raw meat. This is the second time. Raw meat.